Alright, so this is going to be my commentary video for my Mural time-lapse. Now, this thing was a doozy, so let's get right into it before I get behind. Okay, so the first thing that I did, I already passed it, I drew a grid on my wall of 10 centimeter squares. Now, basically what that does is it gives me a reference for my Photoshop picture that you can actually see I have there on the wall. The picture actually has its own grid, and so those squares correspond to the grid that I made on my wall. So I can just trace the outline of the characters I want and go from there. So if you look closely, you can actually see that I have a paper towel taped to my hand. Now there are a couple of reasons for that. The first one is, I don't want to smear the pencil marks at all, so that prevents that. And if I would have used like a smear or a smudge guard or like something like a glove, then I'd have to wash it, and that'd just be an extra step that I don't really want to do. So with a paper towel, I can just take it off when it's dirty and throw it away, and then just tape a new one onto my hand, and then that's that. Also, when you're drawing your grid and your outline, you're going to want to start from your left, or from the left side if you're right-handed, and then work to the right side. So that way, you're minimizing as much smearing as possible. But if you're left-handed, you're going to want to work from your right to your left, if possible. So that way, it prevents any smearing that could happen. Now, painting a mural is kind of like a really big coloring book. So you start out with your outlines and your stuff like that, and then you go back in with your colors and you make everything bright and beautiful. But I'm oversimplifying. It's a lot of work to figure out what colors you need and how to make them, because I actually did make all of these colors that you're seeing here. Well, I did the backgrounds. I got those colors, 2 different blues, and then I used red, yellow, so basically primary colors, and then black and white and a skin tone. So all the colors are made from 6 or 7 different colors that I mixed together in some trays. So I think that's really cool, but if you do that approach, you're gonna need to know color theory and how colors work and what you blend to get what different colors. You can see that I actually started with the background. So the reason I did that was because if you make a mistake on the edges of a character, then when you're actually painting that character later, you can go back over and, once you're more trained and you've learned some things about your mural and where things should go and what should happen, you can go back in and, fix those mistakes you made earlier in the earlier stages of painting. Now here, a while ago I actually put it on, but I used a tape for the background in order to get a perfect line, and what I did was I painted the first color on both sides of the tape, so that way, when I put on the second color, there's no bleeding underneath the tape that would be sort of ugly. So this gives me basically a perfect line, and it did work out really well actually. The only downside is there's a tiny ridge that pops out, because there's just, paint on top of paint, so it kind of builds up a little bit, but I don't think it's a big deal. Alright, so here I actually start painting some characters, again starting from the left and going to the right, so that way I am trying not to stick my hand in any wet paint. And again, start from the furthest back to, the most forward front. I don't know what the right word for that is, but yeah, start in the furthest back, so that way, again, if you make any mistakes, you can cover them up later. when I was doing this, there were a couple of sections that looked pretty weird before I put anything next to them, such as like skin tones and like their hair. So I think somewhere in here I start on Ed's hair, or I mean his face. So like when I did his skin tones and the shadows on his face, it looked really weird, but you know, those things happen and you just gotta know, you know, that's the right color, and once I put his bright yellow hair next to it, it's gonna look a lot better. Yeah, here it is right here. I think when I first saw it, it looked really orange, so I put some white in there just to like dim it down a little bit, but then I went back over with a darker, more saturated shadow, and I think that helped out a lot, as well as the, you know, bright yellow hair. I can speak today. Yay! While doing this pretty much entire project, I only got help from a couple of people in a couple of areas. I think earlier you saw my sister, she painted the white triangle in the middle for the Google Play button, or YouTube Play button. My parents call it Google, so I think it's kind of a habit now that I started calling it Google, but I mean, Google owns YouTube, but it's a YouTube Play button, whatever. It's YouTube. It's called the YouTube Play button. But yeah, she painted that play button, and I think she also painted a little bit of the background. And my friend kind of helped me sketch out, what's his name? Alphonse's hand, because I couldn't figure it out. So he helped me with that, but pretty much the majority of it was all me. So I did most of the sketching, most of the painting, and I guess I did get some help on figuring out like what I wanted in the mural, but beyond those things, all of it was me. You can see I'm actually doing some interesting highlights with Alphonse's armor that I actually really liked how they turned out. How there's like this really sharp, cartoony look glare on his armor, and it just looks really metallic, and yeah. I was thinking about using like silver paint, you know, stuff that shines for like swords and, you know, shiny parts like his armor. But I ended up not doing it because in the anime, you don't really see his armor shining. It's more of a matte color, so I decided to keep going with that and just, you know, do that. And I couldn't really find any silver paint anyway, and any paint that I did find that was like a silvery color was oil paint, and I didn't really know how that would react to my wall, or how different it would be to paint with. So I decided to, actually I didn't mention it, but this paint that I am painting with is latex paint, just normal interior paint that you can get at, you know, Home Depot or Menards, wherever your place of purchasing area is, whatever you want to call it, wherever you want to buy it. That's, you know, just interior latex paint. I'd say the most fun part of my mural was doing Korra's water and fire. Now the reason of that is because I got to be loose with it, and you know, there wasn't a set pattern that I had to follow. I mean, there was like a little bit of a pattern and like things that I was going off of, but it wasn't like specifically you have to do this, this, and this. You know, I could be loose with it and creative, and I really enjoyed that, and I think both of the water and the fire turned out really well. So I'm really happy with those things, and they were the most fun to paint. So yeah, all around good things happening out of that. The reds and yellows, like the fire and the YouTube play button, as well as Ed's coat and the Triforce, those each, because the colors were so light and thin, the reds and yellows took about 4 to 10 coats each, because, you know, it was really watered down for some reason. It's probably just how they make the paint. But so those were really tedious and annoying, but you know, the fire again looks awesome, and I'm really happy with it. I'd say my most detailed character would be Link. The picture that I went off of was more of a painterly look, you know, like oil paints, stuff blending all over the place. So trying to project that onto my wall with the paint that I was using, and well, most of my other characters were like solid shading and stuff like that. But trying to do all that blending in that one character was really hard. And, you know, I had to do a lot of the blending on the wall rather than in my palette or in my paintbrush or whatever. Link's skin tones I actually struggled with quite a bit at the beginning when I started drawing him. If you want to scrub back in the video a bit, you can actually see like his hair looks really, or his skin like above his eye looks really weird before I put his hair there. But it's like the same deal with Ed. You know, the skin tones can look really weird until you put the hair and surrounding stuff around it. So again, just have to keep in mind, you know, this is the color it should be, and it'll just look better once I surround it with what it's supposed to be surrounded with. Not really much to say about Stitch and Lilo. Yeah, Lilo and Stitch. Not really much to say about them, you know, standard character, basically the same thing I already went over. They did have a little bit of shading, like Link did, but I think that's just because I learned how to do that, and that's just what I did from then on. So now you can see I'm going back and doing outlines and details of each character. You know, just using straight black for some of them. I actually did I did Link before I did all of the other characters, just because Link has more of a bluish outline. I mean, it's really hard to notice, but if you look closely, you'll see, well, you probably won't be able to see it in the video, but in person you can kind of see how it's a blue tint rather than just straight black. For the anime characters like Alphonse and Edward, I actually did a thicker outline than the interior of their character. So like, for instance, Alphonse's belt for his little skirt thing, I don't know what else to call it, apron, that little line there is thinner than the outline of like his arms and, you know, where his character meets the background. That's just to make it stand out even more and give it that more anime and manga look than all the other characters. I mean, Korra and Aang are both in like cartoons, but they're not really like in manga and anime. I mean, they're both adapted to like comics, but they're not like anime, you know. In total, my mural took 130 days of filming and 205 days from start to finish. So that's like an enormous amount of time. And I ended up with 140 hours of footage and about 280 hours spent working, because I had to do, you know, second coats of everything. So here we can see, you know, the final glorious pictures with my bed put back where it's supposed to be and some new lighting in my bedroom. So that gives it a little bit more of a moody lighting, like more dramatic. And yeah, I'm really happy with everything, with how everything turned out. You know, it's a really big accomplishment for me to get all this done. I am going to be uploading a tutorial video on how to paint a mural, so if you want to check that out and give it a go yourself, then you can click the link on screen right now or in the description. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed, I highly encourage you to subscribe for more videos, and you know, like it and share it with your friends, and you know, be like, hey yo, so this guy painted a mural in his bedroom and it looks freaking awesome, should go check it out. Yeah. Alright guys, well, I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.